I thought I had finally found the woman I was meant to spend my life with, but every word she told me about herself was a carefully constructed lie designed to reel me in. By the time I figured out who she really was, she had already turned my own children against me and walked out the door to someone else. The moment I knew my relationship was completely done was not the night she screamed at me in front of both our families. It was not the moment I found out about the other man. It was not even the moment she packed her bags and told me she deserved better. It was the Tuesday morning about 3 weeks after all of that, when my daughter called me on her little tablet from her bedroom in the house that used to be mine, and she said, "Daddy, why don't you love us anymore?" She was 6 years old. 6 years old and asking me that question with her little face all scrunched up like she was trying not to cry. And I knew right then that the woman I had loved for almost 5 years had told my child something so deeply wrong that I had no idea how long it would take to undo it. That is the story I want to tell you. Not a story about being a victim, because I made my own choices and I stayed longer than I should have. But a story about what it looks like when someone decides to use your kids as their personal artillery in every single argument they can find. Let me go back to the beginning, because you need to understand how this started to understand how badly it ended. I met Cassie at a work conference in Denver. I was 31 at the time, recently out of a long-term relationship that had ended pretty quietly and mutually. No drama, no hard feelings, just two people who had grown in different directions. I had 2 kids from that relationship, Marcus, who was 2 at the time, and Lily, who was barely 1. My ex and I had worked out a pretty reasonable arrangement. We were both committed to making co-parenting work, and honestly, for a while it did. So I was not exactly looking for anything serious when I sat down at a conference table in Denver, and a woman with dark red hair and a loud laugh sat down across from me and started talking about the presentation like she had been thinking about it for years. Cassie was sharp. She was funny. She had this energy that filled a room without trying to. We ended up at the hotel bar after the conference wrapped, and we talked until 2 in the morning. She told me she was 30, that she had been in a long relationship that ended because he was not ready to commit, that she had no kids but had always wanted them, that she was working as a marketing director for a mid-sized tech company and loving every minute of it. She told me she was self-sufficient, career-driven, and not looking for anyone to take care of her. I remember thinking those exact words later and feeling like the biggest fool alive. We dated long distance for about 4 months before she moved to my city. I want to be clear that I did not ask her to move. She brought it up. She had been thinking about a change anyway, she said. Her company had a remote option. She had always liked the Pacific Northwest. It made sense. Looking back, I think she had already decided what she wanted and was just waiting for me to be far enough in that I would not pump the brakes. The first few months after she moved were genuinely good. She was working, she was contributing to the household, she was warm with Marcus and Lily during my custody time. She did not try to replace their mom or overstep. She let them come to her at their own pace. I fell completely in love with her. I am not going to pretend otherwise. The first thing that did not quite add up was small, and I almost missed it. She mentioned offhand one evening that she had gone to school in Boston. I thought she had told me Portland when we first met. I brought it up and she looked at me with this very calm expression and said I must have misheard her. She had always said Boston. I let it go. Then there was the thing with her family. She told me early on that she was estranged from her parents. Difficult childhood, she said. She did not want to get into it. I respected that. But one night when she was in the shower, her phone lit up on the counter and I saw a text from someone saved as Mom. I was not snooping. I genuinely just glanced over and saw it. When I mentioned it to her, she got very quiet and said her mom had reached out recently, and they were working on things, and she had not wanted to make a big deal of it. I believed her again. It was around month 6, after she moved in that the red flags started showing up in ways that were harder to dismiss. She started mentioning her job differently. Little complaints at first. Her manager was difficult. The remote setup was more isolating than she had expected. The company was going through changes, and she was not sure it was a good fit anymore. I listened, I sympathized. I thought she was going through a rough patch. Then one day in March, about 2.5 years into our relationship, she sat me down and told me she had quit. Not that she was thinking about quitting, not that she had a plan lined up. She had already quit 2 weeks ago, she had just not told me. I remember sitting there trying to figure out how I felt. I asked her what the plan was. She looked at me like I had asked her something slightly offensive. "I need some time," she said. "I have been grinding for years. I need to figure out what I actually want to do." "How are we going to handle the bills?" I asked. "You make more than enough," she said. "It is not going to be forever, just a few months." I want to tell you I pushed back harder than I did, but I did not. I had a good job. I was not stretched thin. And she said it so reasonably, so matter-of-factly, like it was a small logistical issue and not a fundamental shift in how our entire household was going to function. A few months turned into 7, then 10, then over a year. She was not looking for work in any real sense that I could see. She was taking online courses. She was reading books about personal reinvention. She was meeting friends for lunch and coming home talking about manifestation and energy and alignment. I was paying for all of it. The rent, the groceries, her car insurance, her phone, her gym membership, her lunches, her online courses. And every time I tried to have a conversation about a timeline, about what the plan was, about when she was going to start contributing financially again, she would get this look on her face like I was attacking her. "I need your support right now," she would say, "not your pressure." Or, "I thought you believed in me." Or the one that always stopped me cold. "I am the one raising your kids when you are at work, and you want to criticize me for that." And that is where the kids thing started. Because she was not wrong that she was there during my custody weeks. She had taken on more of the day-to-day things with Marcus and Lily. But she had done that gradually, and I realized later that it had been deliberate. She had made herself indispensable in their lives, so that she had a card to play whenever I raised any concerns. Marcus had a really hard day today, and I was the one who was there for him, not you. Lily calls for me at night. I am the one who gets up with her. You barely know what is going on with your own kids. Every disagreement, no matter what it started about, would eventually find its way to the children. She would remind me how much she did for them, how attached they were to her, how disruptive it would be to upset that. It was subtle enough that I told myself I was reading too much into it for a long time. Looking back now, I can see it clearly. At the time, I just felt guilty constantly, like I was failing to appreciate her. The truth about her past came out in pieces, and it did not come out cleanly. It came out the way the truth usually does, sideways, accidentally, through cracks she did not notice she was leaving. Her friend Danny came to visit one weekend. They had gone to school together, Danny said over dinner, in Portland. I looked at Cassie. She did not flinch, she just kept eating. Later I asked her about it. She said Danny had meant they had lived in Portland at the same time. They had met in Boston, but Danny had also lived in Portland. I pointed out that Danny had specifically said they had gone to school together. Cassie shrugged, said Danny mixed up the timeline sometimes. I started quietly fact-checking things, not obsessively, but paying attention. And the more I paid attention, the more I realized that the woman I thought I knew had been constructed from 100 small fictions. The job she had described when we met had been more junior than she had let on. The relationship that had ended before me had not ended because he was not ready to commit. It had ended because she had cheated on him. I found that out from Danny, actually, in a conversation where Danny clearly did not realize she was telling me something Cassie had never disclosed. The estrangement from her parents was not a painful chapter she had moved past. Her family had pulled back from her after that same relationship ended, and word had gotten around about what she had done. The confident, self-sufficient, career-driven woman I had met in Denver had presented me with a version of herself specifically designed to appeal to someone like me. And once she had me, she gradually became someone else entirely. I did not confront her about all of this at once. I wish I had. But I was still trying to figure out what I actually knew versus what I suspected, and I was also, honestly, scared. Because by this point I had two small kids who adored her, and I did not know what blowing everything up was going to look like. My 40th birthday fell in October. Cassie had been planning a dinner for weeks. She had reserved a private room at a restaurant I loved and invited both my family and her family. Yes, by then her parents were back in the picture, which I had also not been told about until her mom started appearing in conversations casually. It was a big gathering. My parents, my brother and his wife, a few close friends. Her parents, her sister, a couple of her friends. 20-odd people in a private room with good food and wine and the vague performance of everything being fine. I had found out 2 days before the dinner. I had found out because Cassie left her laptop open on the kitchen counter while she went to get something from the car, and I was walking past and saw a name in the corner of her screen. A name in a message thread. A man's name. And the message visible in the preview was short enough that I read it in 1 second and could not unread it. I keep thinking about you. Tuesday felt real. I did not touch her laptop. I walked into the living room and sat down and stared at the wall for about 15 minutes. When she came back inside, I said nothing. I did not know what to say. I needed time to think. I needed to figure out what I actually wanted to do with this information and what our situation would look like if I blew it open right then. For 2 days I carried it around like a stone in my chest. I watched her plan the birthday dinner. I watched her text people and confirm arrangements and buy a new dress and act like everything was completely normal, and I said nothing. The night of the dinner, I was quiet in the car on the way there. She asked if I was okay. Just tired, I said. She reached over and squeezed my hand, and I looked out the window. Dinner started well enough. People were warm and laughing. My brother was telling stories. The food was good. Cassie was playing the perfect hostess, making sure everyone had what they needed, charming both families, being exactly the person she had presented herself as for years. My dad gave a little toast, said something about how good it was to see me happy and settled. And something in me just came apart. I do not fully understand what made me do it that night. Some part of me had been waiting years to stop performing. Some part of me was so exhausted from carrying all of it, the financial support, the walking on eggshells, the slow erosion of my own judgment, that when my dad said I looked happy and settled, I could not pretend anymore. I waited until the speeches were done, and then I put down my glass and I said, I want to say something too. Cassie looked at me with this bright, expectant smile. I have been doing a lot of thinking this week, I said, about this relationship and about honesty. And I think we owe everyone here the actual truth about where we are, because I am not happy and I am not settled, and I have been lying to myself for a long time about that. The room went very quiet. Cassie said my name, very quietly, like a warning. I know about the message, I said. I know about Tuesday, and I know about a lot of other things too. What happened next I can only describe as controlled chaos. Cassie's face went completely white. Her mother made a sharp sound. My mom reached across the table and put her hand on my arm. My brother said my name. Cassie stood up. She said in a voice that was shaking slightly that this was not the place, that we should talk privately, that I was making a scene. You planned this dinner, I said. You invited everyone here. If it was going to be a celebration, I wanted it to actually mean something. And it cannot mean something when our whole relationship has been built on things you decided I did not deserve to know. She sat back down. Her eyes were hard and bright. You want to do this right now, she said. Fine. Tell them all how you treat me. Tell them how you pressure me and make me feel small and have made me feel worthless for the last year. I would love to, I said. And then you can tell them what you have been doing behind my back. Her father said something. My mom said something. My brother told everyone to calm down. The evening disintegrated completely over the next 20 minutes. People peeled away. Some quietly, some after murmured conversations in corners. Her mother left crying. My parents stayed until almost everyone else was gone. Cassie and I drove home in total silence. She slept in the guest room. I sat up most of the night. In the morning, she tried to reframe everything. She said I had humiliated her in front of her family. She said I had ambushed her. She said whatever she had done, she had been driven to it by how unsupported and trapped she had felt in our relationship. I had heard every version of this argument before, but that morning I was done. I'm not doing this anymore, I said. She shifted tactics immediately. I watched it happen in real time, like a door swinging open. What about Marcus and Lily? She said. What about them? You want to blow up their lives. You want them to lose someone they love, because you are going to have to explain to them why you chose this. I am not the one who made choices that blew this up, I said. They are going to be devastated, she said, and I am going to have to be the one to support them through that, again, like I always am. I told her that Marcus and Lily were not her children, that I appreciated what she had given them, genuinely, but that she did not get to use them as a shield in a conversation about what she had done. She looked at me like I had struck her. I have given up everything for you and those kids, she said. You quit your job, I said. That was your choice. She left that evening to stay with a friend, and within 3 days it became very clear that the man in the message was not just a flirtation. It had been going on for months, and when the news got out among their circle, he ended it with her almost immediately. I found out through a mutual acquaintance. He apparently told her he had not signed up for drama and walked away without much ceremony. I will not pretend I felt nothing hearing that. There was a very dark and very human part of me that felt something like satisfaction. I am not proud of it, but I am not going to lie about it either. What followed was one of the most painful stretches of my life, not because of the breakup itself, but because of what came after. Cassie did not let go quietly. The first thing she did was reach out to my ex, Priya, the mother of my kids, and tell her that I had been emotionally abusive and that she was concerned about Marcus and Lily being in my care. I found this out from Priya directly, who called me and said, I am telling you this because I do not believe her, but you should know. Priya and I had our own history and our own complications, but she knew who I was as a father, and she was not going to let someone manipulate her into a custody war on their behalf. Still, the fact that Cassie had gone there told me everything I needed to know about what the next few months were going to look like. She made comments to Marcus. He was 6 by then, old enough to absorb things, young enough not to fully process them. She told him that she missed him, that she hoped they could still see each other. That things had changed because his dad had made some hard decisions. She was not explicit about it. She was too smart for that. But a 6-year-old does not need explicit. A 6-year-old just absorbs the emotional weight. That is how I ended up with my daughter asking me why I did not love them anymore. I called a family friend named Gerald. Gerald had been close to my family for years and had worked as a mediator in family and custody situations, though he had been retired from formal practice for a while. I did not need him in a professional capacity exactly, but I needed someone who understood the landscape and who both Priya and I trusted. Gerald met with me first, then Priya, then the 3 of us together. He helped us build a framework, not a legal one, Not yet, but a communication framework. A set of agreements about what we would and would not expose the kids to. About how we would handle it if one of us heard the kids repeating something they should not have been told. About what role, if any, Cassie would have going forward. Priya was clear. She did not want Cassie near the kids unsupervised, not because she hated Cassie, but because she did not trust the influence. She was not wrong. Gerald helped us navigate that conversation without it turning into a fight about our own past. That was genuinely impressive given our history. He had a way of keeping things focused on the children, without letting either of us use them as weapons against each other. We also agreed to document everything. Every time one of the kids said something that suggested they had been told something by Cassie, we wrote it down with dates and noted it. Not to build a legal case, though that door was open, but so that we had a record that was real and specific, and not just our word against hers if it ever got to that point. The documentation turned out to matter. Cassie contacted me twice in the first month after we separated to say she wanted access to Marcus and Lily. She framed it as being about them, about their well-being, about not wanting them to lose a relationship they valued. I will admit that part of me felt the pull of it. She had genuinely been a presence in their lives for 3 years. That was real. But every conversation she initiated about the kids folded quickly into a conversation about me, about what I had done wrong, about how I had handled the birthday dinner, about how she had deserved better. The kids were the entry point. Her grievances were the destination. I stopped responding. The second time she called, I let it go to voicemail. She left a message that started out measured and ended in tears, saying she had sacrificed so much, and she did not understand how I could just cut her out of their lives like she was nothing. I played that message for Gerald. He listened carefully and then said, "She is not thinking about those kids. She is thinking about herself and using them to get back to you. You already know that. You just needed to hear it from someone else." He was right. I did already know it. I had known it for a while. But knowing something and being able to act on it are two different things, especially when children are involved and you are terrified of doing the wrong thing. Those months were lonely in a way I am not sure I can fully explain. The birthday dinner blow-up had been very public among the people I knew. Some friends did not know what to make of it. A few people who had liked Cassie went quiet on me. My brother was solidly in my corner from day one, but even he admitted he had not seen it coming. My mom, who is a woman of very few wasted words, said to me about 2 weeks after everything fell apart, "I liked her. I thought she was good for you, but I think I was watching the performance and not the person." That stayed with me. I had been watching the performance too, for almost 5 years, and I had told myself that the things that did not add up were just rough edges, just human inconsistencies, just evidence that she was a real and complicated person instead of a fictional ideal. I had given her the benefit of the doubt so many times that I had essentially trained myself to dismiss my own instincts. She had crafted the version of herself she showed me in Denver very specifically. The self-sufficiency, the career ambition, the easy emotional openness, all of it calibrated to appeal to a man who had recently left a long relationship and was wary of anyone who needed too much. She had watched me closely enough in those early months to understand what I was afraid of and had made sure to perform the opposite. And once she had moved in, once the relationship had enough gravity to make leaving complicated, the performance started to slip. I do not think she planned every step of it consciously. I think some of it was just who she was, someone who was always calculating the angle without being fully aware she was doing it. Someone who had gotten used to the idea that managing other people's perceptions was just how you navigated the world. But the kids, using the kids was conscious, I am certain of that. Every time I tried to set a boundary around money, she reminded me how much she did for them. Every time I expressed frustration, she pulled out a story about something she had sacrificed for them. Every time I suggested we were not working, she would say something about how disruptive instability was for children and let the implications sit there heavy in the air. It was effective because it worked on my guilt. I loved my kids more than anything. The thought of doing anything that hurt them, even indirectly, was enough to stop almost any conversation cold. Looking back, I can see how thoroughly she had mapped that out. The hardest thing about all of it, the hardest thing by far, was talking to Marcus and Lily honestly about what had happened in a way that was age-appropriate and did not throw Cassie under the bus. Because as angry as I knew that trashing her to them would only hurt them. They had loved her. That love was real even if she had manipulated it. Priya and I handled those conversations together. That was Gerald's suggestion, and it was exactly right. Sitting in the same room with their mother and father, both of us calm, both of us kind, both of us consistent in our message, it mattered to them. They could see that their parents were okay. That was the main thing they needed. Marcus asked once, in that very direct way that 6-year-olds ask things, if Cassie was bad. I thought about how to answer for a moment. She did some things that hurt our family, I said, but she also loved you, and that was real. People can do both sometimes. He seemed to think about this. Then he said, okay, and went back to his Legos. Kids are better at accepting complicated truths than adults give them credit for. They do not need a villain. They just need honesty and stability. The financial fallout from over a year of single-handedly supporting Cassie while she reinvented herself was not catastrophic, but it left marks. I had not been saving the way I should have been. I had covered expenses I would not have had to cover otherwise. I had agreed to things I should not have agreed to because I had been managing her emotions at the expense of managing my actual life. I did not go after her for any of it. I thought about it. A friend suggested it. Gerald said I could probably make a case for certain things given the circumstances. But honestly, I did not want to be in a legal fight with her. I wanted her gone from my life cleanly and permanently. That was what I wanted more than anything, clean and permanent. I changed the financial accounts she had access to. I updated my information on things she had been listed on. I had one conversation with her via text, kept short and factual, about the last few items she needed to collect from the apartment and how that handoff would work. She tried twice to turn it into a bigger conversation. I stayed on the logistics. She moved eventually to another city. I think she went somewhere near her parents, which I found strange given the estrangement she had always claimed. But by then, I had stopped being surprised by what did not match up. A mutual acquaintance told me months later that she had started dating someone new fairly quickly, that the new relationship had moved fast and that she had already started talking about moving in together. I felt something when I heard that. Not jealousy exactly, something more like sorrow, for whoever this new person was, because they were probably seeing the version of her from Denver. Confident, self-sufficient, career-driven, not looking for anyone to take care of her. I hoped it would go differently for them. I genuinely did. But I also knew that I had no way to know if she was capable of that, and it was not my business anymore. What I focused on was what was in front of me. Marcus and Lily settled back into our routines. The first few months were rocky. Lily had a stretch of bad sleep and separation anxiety at drop-off for school. Marcus had a phase of some acting out that his teacher flagged, and that we worked through with a child therapist who was kind and practical and exactly what he needed. But children are resilient when the adults around them are consistent. I showed up. Priya showed up. We communicated respectfully and put them first in every decision. Gerald checked in with us periodically for the better part of a year, not in an official capacity, just as someone who cared about how the situation was developing. He would take me for coffee sometimes and ask how I was doing and actually wait for an honest answer. Not many people do that, actually wait for the honest answer. The honest answer for a long time was that I was tired. Not broken, not destroyed, not even particularly bitter. Just tired in the way you get tired when you have been bracing against something for years and you are finally allowed to stop. I had loved her. I want to be clear about that because it matters to me that it was real, even if what she showed me was not entirely real. What I felt was genuine. The person I thought she was, I would have built a life with without hesitation. That is the particular grief of this kind of thing. You do not just lose the relationship. You lose the version of the person you believed in. And that version never existed. You are grieving something that was not there. That takes a while to process. I am writing this now, more than 2 years out from that birthday dinner, because someone in a forum I am part of asked for stories about custody situations that started badly and ended in a workable place. I wrote a version of this there, and someone asked me to share more. So here I am. Here is what I would tell someone in the middle of what I was in the middle of, because I wish someone had told it to me. If your partner uses your children as a threat every time you raise a concern, that is not love for the children. That is a weapon. Real love for children does not require leverage. If you find yourself constantly recalibrating your memory of conversations because your partner tells you that you misunderstood, pay attention to how often that happens. Once is a conversation. Twice is a pattern. Every single time is something else. If someone spends more energy managing your perception of them than they do actually being who they claim to be, you will eventually feel it. You might not be able to name it for a long time, but you will feel the gap between the performance and the reality. Trust that feeling even before you can explain it. And if you are a parent who is afraid that standing up for yourself will cost you your relationship with your kids, I understand that fear completely. It is one of the most powerful fears there is. But staying in a situation where someone weaponizes your children does not protect them. It teaches them that manipulation is how adults relate to each other. It teaches them that love is conditional and transactional. Getting out, doing it carefully, building something stable on the other side of it, that is what protects them. Marcus is 8 now. Lily is 7. They are doing well. Marcus is obsessed with building things and spent an entire weekend recently designing a cardboard city in the living room that stretched from the couch to the front door, and that I had to negotiate carefully to get around without knocking down. Lily has decided she wants to be a marine biologist and has more books about the ocean than our apartment can reasonably hold. They know their dad, they know their mom, they know they are loved. That is what I was fighting for. That is what I am still fighting for every day. It was worth every single bit of the hard.